All right. Well, good morning and welcome to our third call of Sales. It's the Personal Thing. This is Karla Sandoval, and thank you everybody who's been on the call. Pretty much we've been doing these calls in different categories. We've been taking different subjects. And this morning, or for the last 2 weeks, we're on now the third week of talking about sales. And really looking at, what does it really take to have an effective and empowering and enlivened and fulfilling conversation with the prospect that will leave that other person in a way, in a way that they feel more alive with themselves, and therefore has a stronger connection with you, their salesperson. So anyhow, what I thought I would do today, because what we've been doing, what today's call will be about, there we go, is we're going to look at what does it look like to have a vertical conversation. So, but before we do that, I want to just kind of take you on a real fast journey of what we've been covering so far to get those that haven't been on the call, but more importantly, the people that have been on the call, to refresh your memory of the conversations that we've had the last 2 weeks. And as you remember, the whole objective of this call series is to have a clear understanding of what it takes to have an effective sales conversation and how to have engaging, okay, that's the key word there, how to have engaging conversations that will have the prospect feel alive and connected, and have them take action. So we talked about that there's 3 elements to all salespeople, is that there has to be an element of someone who wants to connect, somebody who is willing to change, because every sales conversation is different, and of course, for you to be somebody who wants to produce results. So great salespeople have all those 3 things in common. They love to connect. I shouldn't say love. It's someone who can connect, someone who is willing to change, and someone who loves producing results. And, one of the misconceptions that we talked about was that selling is finding people that already want to buy what you have to sell. And a lot of people, that's what they think, right? I'm going to go look for people that already want what I have. But what we've started to look at is that selling is really finding people that have some degree of internal conflict and are looking to have an experience with you, the salesperson, in order to make a decision to buy what you are selling. So in other words, they might not even know that they want what you have. So a lot of people think, selling is finding people that already want to buy what I have. But in reality, really, and I'm sure that many of you guys here on the phone have experienced this, that you have gotten a client that they didn't even know they wanted to have more energy. They didn't even know that they wanted what you have, right? But selling is finding those people that have some degree of that internal conflict and that they're looking to have an experience with you in order to make a decision to buy what you are selling. So, we started to ponder. I asked you guys, start to think about, how do you feel towards sales? Because the reality is everything is selling, everything. And so a lot of people feel, I don't like sales. They don't even know what they're saying, because in reality, you're selling all the time. Whether you're telling your friends, hey, let's go to this movie instead of that movie, you're selling an idea. Right? But for whatever reason is that people feel like the selling has like a negative connotation because they feel they have this negative feeling within them. So we started to ponder, what if your sales conversations could be enlivened and full of heart and empowering not only you but also your prospects. And then we also thought, what if they made you feel good about yourself, your impact on your business, and the people you were engaging with? So really the goal at the end of this series is for you to start associating sales with the real enlightening experience for you and your prospects, okay? So we said that there is only one element that will change your relationship to sales forever if you really commit yourself to this concept and really take it to heart, and that is this concept that people are always hiding. People are always hiding. They're hiding from each other. I mean, we all hide, okay? Not just like everybody. We all hide. We hide from each other, and more importantly, we hide from ourselves. So if you can, when you're talking to somebody, if you can really get that they're not really exposed, that they're hiding from you and that they're hiding from themselves, so many things that go on in a sales conversation. You sometimes, really the sales conversation, really what it's about when it's effective, is allowing you, the salesperson, okay, to have an opportunity to discover what it is that person is hiding. Now, of course, we're hiding all kinds of things, right? But in relationship to what it is, in this case, our product, our nutritional program, or our opportunity, okay? And so in a sales conversation, what people really want is for you to find them, okay, for you to find them so that they can have a new experience of themselves. That's really what they were looking for. So we have to break an old concept, and that is that sales is not all about closing. ABC, always be closing. That's not what an effective sales conversation is about. Now, do you have to close a sale? Absolutely. Do you have to ask them for the money? Absolutely. Do you have to ask them what flavor of shake do you want? Absolutely. But really, we started to start breaking that old concept, and instead think that sales is an opening process. Okay, and the opening process is facilitating another human being to open up. So if they're always hiding, we started to look at how do we get them to open up, right? And by doing that, your sales will increase. Okay, every time you help people open up about what they are really feeling, needing, and wanting. So we talked about that anytime that you can have people open up about what they're really feeling, like about their weight, their energy, their finances, what they're really needing, and what they really want, your sales will increase. Okay? So we started to look at that we must be in the inquiry of what makes a difference for them. See, and I get it because sometimes when we first start our business, any business, it doesn't matter if it's Herbalife or selling tacos, it doesn't matter. At first, we really want, we have our own personal concerns in mind. And I'm not saying for you not to have them, but to really start to be in the inquiry of what will make a difference for the person that you're actually talking to, like what is important to them. And in addition to that, we looked at the fact that people are most likely to buy and continue to buy when they've made an emotional connection to you in those first sales conversations. So if you really can capture what people are really feeling, needing, and wanting, if you can capture that through an opening process, people will feel connected to you, and then, therefore, you will have loyalty. So it is that emotional connection to you that connects people to something real and alive within them. So we're just a clearing. We're just an access. Okay, we're just to facilitate and explore for them to explore themselves and be in touch with something within them that will have them have a different experience of themselves. And when you can do that, that is what you call an effective sales conversation. So we started to look at, so what are we going to be looking for? How do we do that? And we said that you do that by entering the other person's world. So if you want an emotional connection with your prospect and that they find a piece of themselves that is hidden, you must first enter into their reality. Now, how do we do that, right? So, by you entering into the reality, you will actually take them on a journey with themselves, and that will have them be 10 to 25% deeper into them. If you can get them to go 10 to 25% deeper within themselves than they normally go, you have an emotional connection with that person. So you take them on this journey. And how you do this is you want to start finding, we started talking about how you want to start finding how people hide behind their symbolic expression. See, and here's the thing. A symbolic expression is a shorthand that people use to capture a set of experiences, and there's always a meaning that's associated with them, but because we use them so much, we many times overlook them. For example, we said, someone will say, you know what, I want to start this business because I want to be successful. Okay. Now, here's the thing. What will happen is we trade these symbolic expressions all the time, and so we don't enter into somebody else's reality. We don't enter into their world. We talked about that when you don't do that, it becomes a horizontal conversation. It becomes very superficial. So, for example, if someone says, I just want to, I really want to do this business, I want to be successful, and you're like, okay, great. So, look, the first step you have to do is you got to get registered with the company, and then you start going through the process. When you assume that you understand people, when you really don't, because success to them might be very, like, for example, my definition of success might be, I'm certain it's very different than most of you on the line, because my definition, as your definition, is very different than everybody else's on the line. It's unique to everyone. But when you assume that you understand people, when you really don't, you leave them feeling disconnected to themselves and from you. And therefore, they will feel very dissatisfied with the conversation. It's like they don't even know why, but something's missing, right? And so, for example, if you say like, oh, my ultimate goal is to be successful, and you're like, okay, great. So let's get you registered with the company, and now the next step is you want to come to the HOM, and then you start going through the motions, like your agenda, right? Or someone says, I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, that's great. What program you need is the ultimate. You think it's like you have your agenda, but in reality, they feel like so disconnected. This doesn't feel right. And you're wondering why nobody's purchasing from you, and that is because you're having these superficial, horizontal conversations. So in moments like this, people will, the prospects will hide in their old experiences of themselves and completely feel disconnected. Like perhaps as a kid, and I'm not a psychologist, but perhaps as a kid, they felt like nobody ever heard them, nobody ever cared, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, I really want to lose 30 pounds. And they have all these things within them, right? And they come to you because they want to have a different experience of themselves. Yet you have a superficial conversation, and they're like, again, this person probably always felt like nobody ever cared, nobody listened, right? They're not enough, nobody worries about them, that kind of thing. And they come to you to have a different experience. Yet what happens is you have a superficial conversation with them, bam, you take them back to when they were a child, and now you are another person that doesn't listen, that doesn't care. And they feel completely uninspired to buy from you. And so that's where we left off for the last 2 weeks. So now we're going to start looking at, okay, so now that we know that, what's the process for a different approach, for sales that can penetrate into their world, that can have them have a different experience of themselves, feel connected to you, but also not be like totally intrusive, right? So there's the process for a different sales approach will require you to start changing your way of thinking. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, so it's going to require practice, okay? So your sales success is really related to how willing you are in entering the other person's world, or how you're willing to enter into their reality, not yours, but theirs, and see the world as they see it, okay? So opening opportunities will create vertical movement in a sales conversation that will take the prospect on a journey that is new for them and self-revealing for them, okay? So let's take a look at that. So what is a sales, a vertical movement, okay? So how does this look? So for example, taking back the same example that we talked about, like, I want to do this business, I want to be successful. And you're like, okay, that's wonderful. Tell me, what does success look like for you? Or what do you define as success? What will have you feel successful? See, now I'm taking them deep. And they'll probably say whatever they say, right? And they'll say whatever they say, and if it's appropriate, you might want to even explore it even deeper than that. So, these symbolic expressions, as we talked about, are like things that are general, that'll allow you to go deeper. But we also started talking, don't forget that there's always opening opportunities for you to go vertical with them, to go deeper and penetrate, for them to have a different experience of themselves. So, for example, things like, cash is tight right now. Or if someone comes to you and says, you know what, I just haven't had a good experience with this kind of industry, or I haven't had a good experience with the product, or I haven't had a good experience with this company. And you don't leave it like, oh, really? Okay, well, listen, so you know what, we're different. So you can't do that, because then the other person feels like you didn't hear them. But instead, if you go vertical, right? Because, I mean, I had people say, you know what, your products don't work. I tried them many years ago, and I didn't lose any weight. I know this didn't work for me. I don't say, well, you know what, things are different now, and I don't get a little attitude with them. Instead, I go, really? You know, what exactly were you taking? Well, I don't really remember, you know, some powders or something, and I just remember, like, all these pills or something like that. I go, okay, well, can you tell me a little bit about what was it that you were trying to accomplish? Like, what was it that what was your goal back then? Well, I wanted to lose weight. Okay, great. So, you know, how are you taking the products? And I actually care to listen, right? And in the discovery, and I've had this happen to me, I have had people that when they see my button, they give me this yucky look on their face. They're like, ugh, Herbalife. And I smile, and I'm like, oh, you know the company. They're like, oh, yeah. Because they had a bad experience, right? It's obvious. They don't even have to tell me. But that's an opening opportunity. And then I go, okay, well, what happened? They're like, oh, my God. And they say whatever they say. And then I go vertical on them. I start asking them questions. But I don't ask them in the sense of being defensive or with an attitude. I actually ask them because I'm really curious, and I want to know what their world, what their reality was for their experience with us. Okay? So if you look at that and you start doing that, that will take them deeper within themselves. And they'll actually remember, I kept telling you this over and over again, Ron Rivera used to always tell us this, the person that speaks the most is the one that will get convinced. So if you're there like trying to defend your company or defend the products, and you're like talking and talking and talking and talking and talking, the reality is you're just getting more convinced of how great this business and opportunity and the products are, but that other person, you didn't make any difference with them. They don't have a different experience of themselves with that kind of conversation. But instead, if you actually take the time and ask them questions, really, you know, what happened? Tell me what happened. And they say whatever they say, and you just be neutral, and then you go, really? You know, well, and you keep asking them questions. I think you get the picture. So look for conversations that will allow you to go deeper, that are relevant, right? Now, on the contrary, something that's really positive, it's the same thing. They can say, you know what, oh my gosh, I love your product. You know, I love your company. Like the other day, the president of Bank of America was like, oh my God, I love your company. You know, I could have been like, oh my God, that's great. And that would have been the end of the conversation. But instead, I'm like, really? I'm like, hi, I'm Karla. What's your name? He's like, oh, Raul. I'm like, oh, Raul, nice to meet you. I'm like, you know, I mean, I know that the company is wonderful, but tell me, why do you love the company so much? And he's like, oh, you know, I met your president, and then he told me all of the reasons, right? And he goes, yeah, and then they gave me, and then I said, oh, that's fantastic. Have you ever tried our products? He's like, yeah, you know, they gave me these little fizzy things, and I'm like, lift off? I'm like, they look like condoms, and he started laughing, right? See, boom, I'm having him have a different experience of himself. I'm having him experience himself in humor. I hope you get that. That's going vertical, okay? And then he's like, no, what, you guys have condoms? And I'm like, no, we've got these tablets that, like, they're like Alka-Seltzers look like things, and they come in these little packages that look like condoms. He's like, no, it was like a little tube. I'm like, oh, it's Best Defense. He's like, yeah, your CEO gave me this thing. I was kind of coming in with the cold, and he gave it to me. And I'm like, oh, Michael, my guy, he's really great. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, did you have orange or lemon? He's like, oh, I don't remember. I'm like, yeah, they're really great. I'm like, what else have you tried? He's like, no, that's it. That's all I tried. And I'm like, oh, that's you. I think you get the picture, right? And then I started asking him questions. I'm like, well, you look like you're pretty healthy. I'm like, do you work out? What do you do? And he's like, no, I just try to, and then he said whatever he said. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm like, you should really consider trying. We've got a great line of products for athletes and for people that like to live a healthy, active lifestyle. They have you feeling really energetic, but really mentally focused. You know how sometimes some products, like, they give you a lot of energy, but they make you feel like your heart's about to come out of your chest. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, these products are not like that. They actually, have you ever felt like, whenever you're running or working out, that you get that second wind? He's like, yeah. Boom. I took him to a different experience. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, when you're on our nutritional program, personally, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm alive. I feel like I have like the second wind, especially when I take that lift off, that condom thing that I told you about. It really gives you a sense of natural energy, but focus. So you don't feel like your chest is going to pop out of your heart. Your heart out of your chest. but you really feel like you're having that second wind throughout your workout. I'm like, they're really great. And he's like, oh, my God. I'm like, you know what, would you like me to give you some samples? He's like, yeah. Boom. See, so I took him on a different experience by making him remember a moment of when he had that second wind. So when you do that, that is how you go vertical with people, okay? So I want you to start thinking, you've all had experiences. Okay, let's think about this for a second, okay? Think about how you have felt when you went to go buy something and you had a sale experience with someone that didn't ask you any questions. They were like just in to kill it, like just want to go for the sale, okay? And think about the last time you did that to somebody. Like, I want you to get present to that. Like, that you were not really listening. Think of how you felt when you were talking to your prospect in that sales conversation. Okay? Now, think about how would you feel and what might be your experience if you had a vertical conversation with the prospect, where you actually ask them questions to take them deeper. See, because here's the thing. When you start doing this, you start having vertical conversations with people, you will start building a culture, like your sales culture will be one that's supportive. And when that happens, if your sales culture, there's a connection and the care within your culture of sales, if you're the only person on your team, then you are your culture, right? But if you got a couple of distributors already and you start showing them how to have those vertical conversations, you will start creating the culture of connection and care, therefore leading to loyal customers and referrals. And of course, that will then for the result would be an increased bottom line. Okay, so how do you take a vertical journey, like to have somebody go vertical with the conversation? So you want to think about, what are the questions that work? Okay, what are the questions that will work for that to happen? What are the questions that will take a prospect from an opening opportunity, like, your business, or I love your company? Okay, what are the questions that will take a prospect from that opening opportunity to a 10 to 25% deeper place? What are the questions that you can ask people, okay? Also, think about, how can you give your prospect a new experience and new enlivenment of themselves that will automatically make them feel connected to you? Okay, so think about how can you give your prospect that experience that will automatically have them be more connected to you? So I'm going to give you some ideas. If you guys have a piece of paper and a pencil, you might want to write these down. If you don't, you can listen back to this call. You can always fast forward the call to this section. So I'm going to give you some phrases or some questions that can help you go vertical. Here they are. What do you mean? Okay. What do you mean by that? What does that mean? Okay. What does that mean to you? So tell me more about that. Can you give me an example of when that occurs? Okay, that's a good one. I like that one a lot, actually. When someone goes, I'm always so hungry, and I just feel blah, 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 blah. Can you give me some examples of, like, around what time does that occur for you? Like in the morning, in the daytime? You're taking them on that journey. You're getting them present to that, right? How often does that happen? So someone says, you know what? I'm always so bloated. And, how often does that happen? Every day. See, boom, you're taking them deeper, right? Let me see another one here. What makes you cautious, angry? No, that's not for you. Okay. Why does that concern you? Or why does that frustrate you? Or why does that worry you? Okay. So, for example, someone says like, the products, do they have when I lose the weight, am I going to gain it all back and double am I going to lose 10 pounds and gain 20? Right. So you say, let me ask you something. Why does that concern you? Why does that worry you? Because it has happened to me before, really, well, you get the picture, okay? So, what are you afraid of? So here's another one. What's missing for you? That's a good one. I love that one. What's missing for you, okay? What will happen if that happens? I love that one too. 30 pounds, I'm going to lose the 30 pounds. Okay, great. So when you lose that 30 pounds, what will happen when that happens? Okay, that's a good one. What price are you paying for that? I love that one. Or you can even put, like, what's the impact of that in your life? So someone says, like, lose 30 pounds, I'm so tired, whatever, right? You can say, what's the impact of you having these extra 30 pounds on you? What's been the impact of you not having energy? That's a good one. I love that one, okay? How does it benefit you to be that way or be in that situation? Okay? How does it benefit you? I love that one too. Okay, what's that like for you? So someone says whatever they say, you can say, what's that like for you? Okay? How would that look for you? That's a good one. So I'm going to lose 30 pounds, blah, blah, blah. How would that look for you? Like, can you imagine? So think about once you've lost 30 pounds, how would that look for you? How would your life look now? Oh, and then you take them on that journey, right? How does that feel? That's a good one. That one you can use for a lot of things. How does that make you feel? Okay? And let's say someone says, like, oh, like the little kids. I remember I actually, I won't say her name, but somebody said something about people making fun of her, right? And I said, well, how does that make you feel? I'm like, oh, I started crying, feeling different connection with you. Why do you feel so angry, depressed? That's not perfect. Anyway, so those are some great vertical questions that you can use. Again, if you didn't write them all down, you can always listen back to the recording, okay? But here's the thing. When you go vertical, here's the most important thing. You ask, and you have to stop talking and listen. Okay? You've got to stop talking and listen. Now, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at what stops many from developing that connection with the prospect is fear. Fear. Believe it or not, what has many people not ask those questions, what has many people not go deep, is that they have fear. Okay? So you will be, to transform your sales experience, you will be pleasantly surprised how a connection with your prospects will transform your sales experience and will transform the experience your prospects will have. Going vertical will totally transform your experience as well as theirs. But here's the thing, so many people don't go there because they're afraid. So we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to take on a journey of why is that. We're going to look at what is it like with you. How do you feel with silence? You know what? I want you to ponder this week. Well, first of all, your homework for the week is this. Number one is for you to start practicing going vertical. Start practicing, having those vertical conversations, having those questions that I just, mentioned to you. What do you mean? How does that make you feel? What's missing? What will happen? What's the impact? Start going into those questions, okay? And stop and listen. And I want you guys next week, I'm going to open the lines in a minute here, but I want you guys next week to come back and be ready to share. You hear that? Be ready to share. And because I would love to hear how has it been. Right now I want to hear how were your horizontal conversations this last week, if anybody had them, if anybody felt when they were going horizontal, and what did you do about them. But I want you to start looking and start practicing going vertical and start looking at how does that make you feel, what are the results you're getting. Because next week, we're going to start looking at what stops this fear? What is the conversation that you have with silence? So in addition to you practicing going vertical, I want you to start pondering on the idea, how do you feel about silence? How do you feel about silence? How is it for you when there's silence in a sales conversation? How is it for you when there's silence in any conversation? How do you feel with silence when it's just you in the room? So two assignments this week, right? One is to go vertical, and the other one is for you to start looking at how does it feel when you have silence. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to open the lines. Please don't hang up. I would love to hear, just for like 5 minutes, or maybe 3 to 5 minutes, how do you feel with the sales conversation, the horizontal sales conversation from last week, or anything you would like to share. You guys have no idea how satisfying it is for me when you guys share, because it allows me to see that these calls are worth it, but more importantly, what kind of impact is it having in your life and in your business and in your life, period? Because at the end of the day, you guys, your business is a reflection of your life. No kidding. The more I live, the more I'm convinced of that. So let me go ahead and stop the recording, and I'm going to open up the line. So 1 second, okay?